Network.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday, the 26th day of May, 2014. Can you believe we're about to be halfway in the middle of next month into 2015? I mean, it's like we're in an acceleration machine into the future, but I guess we are as we approach the singularity. All right, you're going to hear lots of radio shows today just worshiping veterans, worshiping wounded vets, maybe even some charities to try to get them prostheses and things. But you're not going to hear a lot out there about how there's a long tradition in ancient Rome and continental Europe, and then, of course, here in the United States, of treating veterans like trash after you're done with them. Because the establishment wants troops to kill foreign enemies and take over land in imperial governments. They don't want you around afterwards because they're scared of you. You're like an old cannon that they've spiked because they don't want it being used. And that's what's unfolding. That's what's happening. We're going to premiere here on the radio in the next segment a 7-minute report by Staff Sergeant Joe Biggs, Army veteran, out at the VA outside Austin, the new VA, where they admitted on tape with a hidden camera, sunglass camera, the police said, you can't be here because they had their cameras openly out. You've got to go because of the VA scandal. So that is going to be coming up here on the radio transmission. The video of that today on this Monday edition will be posted up on Infowars.com. So if you're a radio listener, you can go there and see it for yourself and follow along. But the audio of that is coming up for radio listeners. Then Darren McBreen has another report on veterans of another type, NFL veterans. Many of former NFL veterans calling it a cult, that they were drugged with illegal drugs before many games, and that's now coming out. Yeah, when I played football, I didn't take them, but some of the other young people did. In high school, it was known that people were taking steroids, and it was quietly being encouraged. That's what it's all about in the culture of winning in a state like Texas, where it's the religion. So that's just some of the news coming up today. We'll review the latest breaking news on the VA scandal. And folks are asking, why hasn't anyone been fired yet? Well, I'll break that down at the start of the next segment as well. But I hope that you're all having a happy and safe Veterans Day. I want to attempt today to get people to think about really taking care of our veterans and not sending them to illegal wars and unconstitutional actions, and then taking care of them once they get back here, not listing them as public enemy number one, as the Department of Homeland Security has done. And then, of course, I have solidarity with the vets, not that I'm one, but that then constitutionalists, libertarians, patriots, myself by name, Ron Paul and others, are listed along with returning veterans as the number one enemy. They're listed as number one, but we're listed after that. So we're all in this together, and we need to ask why. Well, most veterans don't trust the system. They know how they've been treated. They know the corruption they saw in the military. They know how corrupt these last wars were. And that's why you're on the chopping block, just like I am and everybody else is, who promotes liberty and stands for justice. And that's why we've got to, in the words of Benjamin Franklin, all hang together or we will surely hang separate. And that is my message to you out there on this Memorial Day. As we go to break, I want to remind you, last week we took a lot of phone calls from active duty and retired military veterans, and they said undoubtedly in the 6 years since Obama got in and the last 2 years since Obamacare began to be phased in, the VA's gone from being a nightmare hit-and-miss situation to absolute death panel list, absolute hell. And I want to challenge all of those on MSNBC, CNN, all the White House-run channels who are saying it's a conspiracy theory that there's any problems. Do you really want to sign on to something this evil, throwing veterans in the trash can? I guess we throw our babies in the trash can, 53 million of them, so I guess it makes sense. It's all coming up as Jimi Hendrix, wasn't he a veteran? Takes us out here, ladies and gentlemen, on Memorial Day 2014. The 2-hour, 4 to 6 p.m. Sunday transmission. And we are joining you today with this original portion of the transmission. We've got some best of info coming up, but here we are on Memorial Day. I want to thank the crew, CJ and others, for being here to run the transmission today. We got a Staff Sergeant Joe Biggs report coming up in a minute that's pretty powerful, investigating the Austin VA that's under investigation for the death panels and more. But first off, CNN, who's right at the heart of all the White House cover-ups, asked the question last Friday, VA scandal, why isn't anyone been fired yet? Or why hasn't anyone been fired yet? Well, that's because the VA has always been bad, and they've always tried to put people on lists and always tried to put people on medication instead of surgeries or rehab. I have a lot of family that are vets. I've interviewed countless veterans groups. It's been a nightmare for a long time. That's no secret. But every vet that called in last week, we did this 3 or 4 days, to give us their report on the VA, said since Obama's been in, it has gone from horrible to absolutely atrocious. Many times worse. And we've caught them with the death panel list that Newsweek promoted, the case for killing Granny. We've had eyewitness reports on last week. The interviews are up on Infowars.com with senior whistleblowers that they talk about, well, we ought to just take all the old vets out and shoot them in the back of the head. There's this governing attitude of socialists that if we kill old people or kill vets or don't take care of them or abort 53 million babies, that'll be more for us. No, the more people we have, the better a civilization we have. You go live in compact cities because there's more people and more jobs and more opportunity. You go out in the country, there's nobody around. The truth is most countries are not overpopulated. China and India are. If you don't have 2.1 children, there's not enough people to pay Social Security. America has 1.3 children. It's this culture of death. So the reason no one's been fired is because this is the orders coming down by the bean-counting socialists that are anti-human. And if you don't have a use, or if they don't have a use for you, then you need to die. We're going to skip this network break coming up because it's so important on Veterans Day. Now, let me go to Bill Gates in 2010, 4 years ago, admitting that Obamacare has a death panel, but you can't say that.
That's a trade-off society is making because of very, very high medical costs and a lack of willingness to say, you know, is spending $1 million on that last 3 months of life for that patient, would it be better not to lay off those 10 teachers and to make that trade-off in medical costs? But that's called the death panel, and you're not supposed to have that discussion.
Okay.
So you, of course,
now let's go to Press. What's the name? Bill Press, the washed-up CNN crossfire guy. On MSNBC, the washed-up MSNBC, their normal shows, 100,000 viewers, top show, 500,000. Local radio shows have bigger audiences as that in major cities like New York or Chicago or L.A. I mean, this is joke level. We have affiliates in the country that have shown 200,000 listeners over 3 hours, places like Orlando. Okay, so this is joke level, folks. This is a joke level network up there with the facade, a facade promoting a hoax and a facade, that it's a conspiracy theory. There's no problem at the VA. This guy's not a liberal. He's a monster pig. And Sharpton comes in and chimes in and agrees. These guys are fascist dirtbags, in my view. Here it is.
You know, let's remember, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is the law of the land. And the people who are ignoring the law are the governors who won't put Medicaid in their states, or these House Republicans who tried to repeal it 54 times. This is just another big lie. But, you know, on the conspiracies, you're right. They went after Obamacare. They were going to run on that this year. That ran out of gas because it's doing so well. So now they've turned to Benghazi. This is soon going to run out of gas. What's next? The VA. I'll bet you that's what they're going to run on next.
Well, they're trying to make the VA, it's conspiracy, it's fear-mongering, and Joe, when they bring up as former Vice President Cheney skirting the law, the Affordable Care Act, as Bill said, is the law upheld by the Supreme Court.
Well, that's enough. Yeah, the corrupt Supreme Court saying it's a tax. Yeah, to private banks that own the insurance companies that wrote it as a giant screw job to line the pockets of government bureaucrats, to give government control over health care, to set up death panels, increase your health care costs while cutting the quality of care. That's why the Republican leadership is fighting to not repeal it and to, quote, only change it. Repeal it, you crooks. The Supreme Court, Sharpton, also ruled what, 170-something years ago that black people weren't human. I say that's a fraud. Hitler had courts that did a bunch of stuff. If the Supreme Court says I don't have a right to keep guns, they can go jump off a cliff. They can go fly a kite. Now, before I go any further into all these articles, we're skipping this network break coming up at 20 after on Veterans Day. Well, to me, it's Veterans Day. I mean, I always call it Veterans Day. I know it's Memorial Day. I know you have Patriots Day. What is that, the 15th? And then you have the other Patriots Day on the 19th. Like they celebrate in the Northeast Patriots Day on the 15th, but then it's really the 19th. Then there's Paul Revere Day. The point is, it's Memorial Day. For me, that's Veterans Day. But anyways, Freudian slip there. We're going to get to this report by a veteran, Staff Sergeant Joe Biggs, of Iraq and Afghanistan, multiple Purple Hearts. Here he is trying to go to the VA. They see our cameras. They see the flag on our microphone. They say, you can't be here. You can't